Cosmetic family.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Cosmetic Podcast.
Cosmetic means being a person or thing that gives rise to a phenomenon that is dynamic or energizing.
We're tackling topics and telling the truth.
I'm Rodrigo Ross.
I'm Keith Benson.
So today we are talking about collateral damage, right? And not like a movie, so no one has to go on Hulu or Netflix or anything. And not really from the military perspective, because the military kind of coined this term of collateral damage when they were really trying to explain that we know that there are going to be some unintended consequences from an act that we have to take. So the collateral damage, we didn't intend for it to happen, but it happened. But in this particular case, right?
Okay.
We're talking about collateral damage when it pertains to leadership. And how does a leader know when the fallout is too great?
Well, that's a little tough, right?
I think so. Is there a formula? Carry the one?
Right. Because the leader who is out there making these decisions, it has these blind spots. And doesn't know, he's going to be slinging out some decisions and not even thinking about what's going to be on the other side of that.
But what if the leader has more of a propensity for adversity or for the abstract than the people they are leading? They may not think it's a bad thing, whereas the folks that they're leading are really suffering, their collateral damage in a decision that's being made.
But some of that then comes from a place where that leader's probably not close enough to their team.
Well, what if it's okay? So let's talk pandemic.
Okay.
There were really some tough decisions that had to be made by leaders who were really close to their teams, but they recognized there's going to be some fallout. There's going to be some collateral damage from this decision that I have to make.
But the key word you said, it was a pandemic.
Oh yeah.
The pandemic was a pandemic, but still in it all, there's still a way that you could save face with your team overall. What we went through in Dallas, I know that when Kirk Hazelbaker was sitting around the table with Brandy, and other leaders, making these tough decisions and going through, who's this person, what position is this, and how does that, help move us forward. Even in this unknown space that we don't even know how it's going to come out on the other side.
But I can't imagine that the person who was affected by that didn't feel like collateral damage, right? What if you have to eliminate a role? Roles are usually attached to people, and even though in your conscious mind, right, in your logical mind, you're okay, well, I understand why a decision had to be made, but you still can't help but feeling dang, I was expendable.
Right.
Yeah, collateral damage, and how does a leader know when enough is enough when you're making decisions?
But some of that is that you gotta. When you're making those decisions, a good leader is going to think through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we got a tough decision. Just use an example of somebody may lose their job on the other side of this decision right here. But it's how close are you beforehand?
Yeah.
Because that truly matters. And then when you're going through making that tough decision, is how do you deliver that? Because some of that is you can be able to save face by how you deliver that. And it's still a shock. At the end of the day, it's a person who has a family, or even if it's single, they still have responsibilities.
Yeah.
And you care about that individual. The job is a job, and a decision is a decision on one part, but there's a human being that has responsibilities, and for the most part, is probably somebody that has responsibility for a family.
So you think the delivery method kind of minimizes the collateral damage?
I don't think it minimizes, because we're talking about, in this example, we're talking about somebody losing a job.
Oh, yeah.
That's livelihood. So you can put a nice severance package there, but it's still, that severance package has an end date to it.
Well, that's true.
Right. And so, but you still have to find some way to soften that blow just a little bit for that individual. And with the hopes is that you can support that individual, especially if it is a kind of a bottom line decision and you need to make this tough decision. How can you really support that person after the fact? And so severance package is one thing. There's also the opportunity to give that person a good reference. There's also even, maybe even teeing them up with some other resources, to help them build their put their resume back together, but offering some other resources to this individual to help with their next step in life.
Yeah, so I'll give give you an example of when I had to navigate collateral damage, right? And I hope that I was successful in navigating it. And so during the pandemic, when we had to start thinking about shifting, and it really became obvious, at least for the area that I was giving leadership to, the branch in the area that I was providing leadership to at the time, that we really needed to shift and get into this essentials kind of space, right? These distributions and giving people the bare essentials, what they needed to kind of make it through this pandemic. Well, one of the things with that is that all of a sudden you get these 18-wheelers and pallet jacks and all of these forklift trucks, and you're coming through doorways that you weren't trying to take pallets through before, and there's stuff scraping across your gym floor when you didn't have, I literally turned my gym into a warehouse.
Right.
And so at the time I was singularly focused on getting all of these goods and all of these necessary items to the people in the community. But then the operator in me kicked in like, holy crap, you are tearing this building up, right? And so at the end of the day, collateral damage. At the end of the day, not knowing at the time that we were doing it, thinking this would be a short-term kind of operation, when things went back, what I have caused the thousands of dollars worth of damage with scuffed up floors and missing tiles and scraped up doorways and chipped off this and broken that, just trying to create this stopgap thing. And what was the threshold for me to say, it's not worth it? Now, clearly there wasn't. My threshold was really high, because we did the distributions, and they're still going on to this day. But there was absolutely a considerable amount of fix up and clean up and kind of make ready that had to happen to that facility when it became forward facing again. And so as a leader, how do you determine what's an appropriate amount of collateral damage in any particular decision?
I don't think you can determine how much appropriate collateral damage, because you're really not trying to cause the damage, but tough decision gets to
but it's inevitable, right? I can't think of, and maybe someone out there can hit us on our line and tell us when there is a decision that seemingly has no collateral damage, but I can't. Every decision has some portion of collateral damage. Now, some of it is just so minuscule that it doesn't even pop up on your radar, and you're like, whatever, it's just not big enough for me to not do whatever it is that I'm thinking of doing. But there are some where it's really tipping the scales, and you're like, should I even do that if it's going to produce this much negative results?
But first you got to set yourself up as a good leader.
Okay,
right?
absolutely.
There's some things that you got to do to have some good leadership behavior. So, some examples could be like, making sure that your team, when you guys are doing a project, making sure that you're giving your team credit for the work that they're doing.
Absolutely.
And you as a supervisor, you're not taking it all in.
Yeah.
Because if you are taking it all in, people are going to call that out. Mm-hmm. And then when you do have to come to that tough decision, it's going to look a little bit different in the way that person may feel about you. But if you are empowering that person, trusting that person along the way, giving them credit, again, when that tough decision comes, that looks a little bit different in that conversation.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot more feeling that's in there. There's a whole lot more advocating maybe for that employee if that leader is doing all the right things.
Yeah.
Because also you don't want to lead people to a place that they quit.
Well, work them to death, huh?
Right. Exactly.
That's true.
Right.
That is so true. But the thing is, even with supervisors who have great leadership skills, in those times, right, when you're really pressed to make these decisions, are those skills making you better at assessing collateral damage and thereby making decisions that, this is really a chicken and the egg kind of question for me. It's existential. Get it? Existential. You saw what I did there?
Cosmetic family. Help me, please. Help me, please.
That's so cute.
But the leader, though, if we got great leaders going on in our organization.
Yes, absolutely.
When you get to those difficult situations, there's going to be some, way that leader is going to be able to deliver a message in such a way that the employee is going to receive that.
Right.
Now,
even if they don't necessarily agree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the decision has to be made. And so supervisors, one, you got to be out there advocating for your team.
Yeah.
And again, when we're we're talking about building, great leadership qualities, you got to be out there advocating for them. Also making sure that they have proper direction and guidance in the work that they do. And so again, when tough decisions come, like, you got to wrestle with it. When tough decisions come, it shouldn't be easy.
Right. Well, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Do you get the sense that it is easy for some people?
Some people, if you're not in tune with your staff team,
and if it felt too easy, that should make you nervous.
Yeah. I would tell you, when I've had to come with those difficult situations, man, the night before, I cannot sleep. I mean, my stomach is turning all over, because I understand that first and foremost, here's this human being that is has responsibility, and especially if they have family, and if they're the sole income that's coming into the house also, you gotta really, really recognize that. I mean, to me, I try to lead with that in mind, and so treat people with this place that you are a person. This job, whatever your title may be, that is not who you are. Right. And so I gotta understand that, as a leader. And so as a leader, you gotta be in this space that, you're not micromanaging the person. You make sure you give them freedom to be able to do their work, And for me, one of the things I do with my staff team, when I get a new staff member, I use the book Strength Finders. Okay. Because I want to focus in on, hey, here's your top 5. That's where I can zero in on in order to make our organization better. That's where we're going to spend our energy at. We're not going to spend our energy and time on all the weaknesses, because regardless what you do, there's not enough work that you can do with the weaknesses to be able to bring them up to a level that equals what your strengths are.
Yeah, so just focus on the positive.
Focus in on the positive.
Do you share what your strengths are?
Do I share? Oh, yeah.
You tell them what your strengths are?
Yeah, so what I will do, probably about once a year, what I'll do is we will lay it out, and, here's, the X amount of teammates, here's what everybody's strengths are, so that you can see that. So that as we're talking about, working together on projects, I can see that, like, okay, this person is the war, the one who can smooth a little bit.
I think that's me. You think? No, you
look, we're gonna focus
you got some other. Okay, then I think that's me though. It sounds familiar. I don't know.
But we want to put people in their right places again, so that when the difficult decisions come, like, it's gonna be a little difficult to be able to make. I don't want it to be easy, right?
Yeah, right.
Because we want to put people, so there's a survey out by Harvard Business Review, right? That says employees who felt that their leaders were like disrespectful to them, they admitted some of these different behaviors. So 48% of them intentionally decreased their work effort.
Get out.
And so when you're talking about folks decreasing their work effort,
half of the people just said, I ain't doing it.
Yeah, just because you disrespectful for me.
I'm not doing it.
47% said they intentionally decrease the time spent at work. So
half of you people just didn't come to work.
So when you get a good staff person, you don't got to worry about let's see, are they coming in at 9 o'clock?
Every Friday they take off.
Right. I mean, you start to see. Are you that type of supervisor that you're watching those patterns right there? But I can guarantee you this. That's like what this Harvard Business Review said, that folks gonna start decreasing their work if you don't respect them.
Well, and you know what? I would like to say that, and it's not right, but I completely understand. Like, why you don't feel appreciated?
But Why more? I mean, I do the job because I like the job. Now, if I got a great supervisor, that give me a little bit more to be able to move. But if you disrespecting me, now I'm still gonna work. But I don't,
Yes, you are definitely gonna still. That's a whole nother podcast about people who never ever not work. That's the next podcast.
Look, I
exactly.
I work. Look.
Yeah, I know.
63% of them lost work time trying to avoid the offender.
Wait a minute. Okay, wait.
63%. Talk to me.
You were not productive because you spent your whole time trying to figure out when you were going to cross paths with that person and make sure that didn't happen? I mean, when you get to a point where you can't face your supervisor, like, that is... I've had that. And I think think it was probably because at the time I was just so incensed by the fact that we were just not on the same page with what success looks like, that I was like, I can't see this person because I don't trust myself not to just call a thing and say something that could be a CLM.
Yeah. You might want to say what CLM is.
Career limiting move.
So don't let your mouth
get ahead of your brain. That's what my grandma said. Don't let your mouth get ahead of your brain.
Well, here's a kicker. Grandma. Here's a kicker though from that 25% admitted to taking their frustrations out on customers. Now,
oh wow!
Think about the power of that. So 25% of the people did that.
Wow!
But 100% of those customers that they affected right there.
Wow!
So now that hits to the bottom line.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, about some collateral damage, right? Because you as a supervisor, you set yourself up disrespecting your staff in such a way that they're not responding in a positive way to be able to work.
And they took it out on their customers. You didn't get quality of work. You didn't get the production. Collateral damage. And so even if you are a good supervisor who makes sure that you advocate for your staff and that you give them credit and that you provide direction and you're respectful and you focus more on strengths and weaknesses, there are still some things that can happen organizationally, right? Even when you are making an attempt to be the best version of yourself as a leader, there are still some things that can happen organizationally as collateral damage. So collateral damage to when a leader has to make a decision or when there's a lot of fallout is damage to your culture. And I can't imagine any good leader is going to do something intentionally to damage culture if it is a good culture. Right now, if it's a bad culture, I can see if they did something to tear it up because it needed to be reconstructed. But if you have a fairly decent corporate or organizational culture, it can absolutely be a victim of collateral damage. And so I will say that talking with colleagues from around the movement and even folks in other different kinds of workspaces and whatever, even if they said they had a somewhat decent or favorable culture, some of the hard decisions that had to be made in this space really did affect culture. And even though, some folks are trying to right side and they're trying to get back to quote unquote normal, folks are really having a hard time kind of getting that synergy back up because the culture is fundamentally different forever. It's not going to just go back because so many of those people are gone. You have so many of those memories. There's been so much loss, so much tension. So it's just been too much. It's just not going to go back. So what do you do about that? If you know that's a part of collateral damage, do you formulate that in your plan?
Yeah, I mean, you think about this pandemic and all the decisions, here with the Dallas YMCA. I mean, you could just, whatever organization, name the organization, we all been impacted in this major way. And there's collateral damage that comes along with that. I mean, so many frontline staff, are no longer with us.
Yeah, that's
so
that talent.
So many
collateral damage.
Full-time staff and key positions, are not there. And so now we notice these gaps even more because an individual handled, this, for us and maybe like risk management. That bucket, like, all right, who handles that? We had a person that we went to. And so, we got to be able to rebound from that right there.
Yeah.
One of the key things that I get the opportunity to lead for us is that we always want to develop our talent here at the Dallas Y. And one of the programs that we had before the pandemic and that we've started back up is called Advancing Your Leadership Potential, AYLP.
I love AYLP. It's a great program.
To where we have identified leaders in our organizations to, make sure that our bench is deep enough. So when we do have a position to come available, we have talent that's already there. And so when we talk about this whole collateral damage part is that if you're always developing your bench, like you can be able to, plug in these different spaces. Yes, tough decisions are going to be made, and some of that may lead to individual, maybe losing a job, but also just tough decisions being made about how we run our programs, but we need talent to be able to fill in those blanks and say that, hey, we had to make this tough decision. We still got to run our organization. Now, I need some leaders to step up.
Yeah.
And this AYLP program that I get to lead this year with some phenomenal talent.
Yeah.
Listen, I tell you what.
Did you just load the team? Was it what?
I feel like this team is stacked.
I know a couple of people in there. I'm gonna have to agree. I got some winners in there.
I got Jenny Federici up in there.
Shout out
Jenny Morrison up in there.
Oh, Jenny Morrison.
And I got Miss Lachey up in there. Miss Lachey, for you all who don't know, the reason that this podcast sounds so great is because of Lachey Leonard.
Yes,
she
Lachey
does an incredible job. But we got a talent pool that's in there that is really off the chain right there.
Nice. And so one of the other collateral damage, right? You lose talent, like when you have to sweep away whole sections of an organization who haven't even come into fruition, you lose talent. But when you have strategies like AYLP, you kind of mitigate that some. And so the other thing that you lose as collateral damage sometimes when you have to make these necessary or hopefully it wasn't unnecessary, right? Necessary decisions is an alignment in priorities. So when you have to make decisions and shift organizations or stop doing something or start doing something that wasn't in your original plan, then people start to feel frazzled and they're all over the place, right? And you start to get this alignment in your this misalignment in your priorities that happens, and it is really hard for people to get back on course. And it is sometimes difficult for agencies and organizations to kind of take a pause, find that guide star, and go back, right? And for nonprofits, that can be exceptionally dangerous because it could cause something we call mission creep. So you know what mission creep is?
Talk to me about mission creep.
So mission creep is when you had to make some decisions or something happened that fundamentally shifted your organization, whether it was finances, whether it was a loss of talent, whether it was a major shift in thought leadership or vision. And because of that, you got all out of whack. It was some collateral damage that happened. You got all out of whack. And so now you're grabbing at straws. And before you know it, you start doing things that's not really what your organization was set up to do. So it could be like an organization that was formed to really talk about childhood obesity, and because of all these shifts and misalignment and collateral damage, now they find themselves doing stuff with animals, like, or homelessness. How did you get there? But they were chasing money. They were chasing validity. They got a talent pool in there that wasn't really quite. And so mission creep happens, unfortunately, a lot for nonprofits when they begin to chase stuff and they don't have that guide star, that strategic plan, that imperative that kind of holds them true to whatever their mission was. But that can be a function of your alignment being out of priority because of collateral damage.
Yeah, and so as a leader, though, if you are not taking steps to become that better leader, especially if you got all these blind spots, that are happening, people maybe have shared that with you. I mean, there's some things that you can do as a leader to correct that.
Okay.
One of those things is that 360. Those things, man.
They make me so nervous.
Because people have the opportunity to tell the truth to you, and you can try to deny it all you want.
You can't handle the truth. Jack Nicholson. But so here's the thing. Most people be like, "Oh, I would love to do a 360. I relish the feedback. I welcome the feedback." But truth be told, in your quiet time, in your private space, you be like, "Oh, I don't want to see what's on this 360."
Right. Because it tells you the truth. I mean, but as as an organization, that's a tool that's helpful there to get, again, to develop your leaders. In this AYLP program, we had all the individuals in that class to be able to take that. Another thing is that, especially when you're dealing with maybe your executive directors, your VP and up, as an executive coach,
Ooh, that's excellent.
Executive coach, if you haven't had one, I've had a couple in my time.
You need a couple?
I needed a couple.
Not just one?
No, it's like, I mean, because you get to places in your career where you need to try to get over this hump, and executive coach can really help bring you out of that.
Gotcha.
And it's helped guide you in the right direction.
Okay.
So and people say, if you want it to work, it truly can, but you got to be able to go out there, and be able to get that. So I would highly recommend getting an executive coach if you're in that position to be able to do that.
Nice. And so it sounds like, right, the whole sweet spot of really understanding collateral damage or mitigating collateral damage is understanding what you need to do or be or develop personally, and understanding the different ways that collateral damage could affect the organizations that you're providing leadership to. Things like your alignment being out of priority, and your alignments are not in priority. I mean, your priorities are not in alignment, and there's you lose this talent. But one of the things too is that as a leader, I think there's an overlap in both. As a leader, you have to get some kind of personal level of comfort with ambiguity, and you got to help your organization have that same appetite, right? And so that's not saying that we're always flying by the seat of our pants, right? Like, we're going to build this plane while I'm flying it, which, by the way, I find very intriguing, and that's very exciting for me. But most people are like, we need a plan. I'm like, let's see what happens when we get there. Right? That's frowned upon most of the time. But
I feel sorry for the passengers on your plane.
It's frowned upon. But I thought we were landing in New York. Why are we in Miami? I felt a little different along the ride. So, but the reality is, and I think that this pandemic really has shown that to us, and quite frankly, it probably really has exposed that weak spot in some leaders, is that everything is not going to be known. Like, there are always going to be unknowns. There is always going to be some level of ambiguity, and you as a leader have to feel like you're skilled enough to move through it, and you got to help your folks feel that way too, and give them some tools to help move through that.
Because see, as a poor leader, you can cost your organization with your bad decisions.
And money, not just the intangible.
And so here's the research. The research found that a single poor leader's cost to a company is $126,000. U.S. dollars, and that's a good little salary.
Well, so here's the thing. What if you have multiplicable? Let's pull that word out. But that means a lot of different leaders in the organization making decisions for whatever areas that they are responsible for, right? And unfortunately, maybe making some poor decisions. You mean each one of those leaders simultaneously could potentially be costing a company $126,000.
And the hope is that we don't get to a place that you have multiple leaders like that can make decisions like that.
That would have that kind of an impact.
Exactly. And so, because to go back to what you talked about earlier, is about culture. Because if you are seeing multiple leaders like that, then your culture is going to be jacked across the board. And so you got to, as whoever's that CEO, COO, is going to have to get that in shape. Fortunately, unfortunately, with all that is going on, cultures are shifting across the board.
Yeah, it is.
And, I would say for hours, I've loved the way that the YMCA Metropolitan Dallas has come together right now in the direction that we're headed. I mean, it just seems like good synergy. There's some things I think decisions that we've made to make sure, from town hall meetings to the recognition breakfast, trying to make those fun and engaging, even though those have been virtual. Now that we're moving out of this, going to some hybrid models to be able to bring people back together. I mean, all of that is, you got to be able to set your culture right so that those collateral damage, can be minimized across the board.
And, even in terms of how we're interfacing with the community, we've definitely had to pivot and shift. And the feedback that we're getting so far is is that people are really excited and glad to see the YMCA in these spaces because we haven't been in so long, right? So talk about collateral damage in an effort to really fortify and shape up the quote unquote membership model, right, of our business and use that as the best practice, or, you know, this is the preferred method of doing business. We moved away from some of those other things that really endear us to the community, that really help people understand that we're a nonprofit, that really gave us voice and credibility in spaces around social justice and children's health and all these other things. And I'm sure that wasn't our intent. We were just trying to fortify this membership model because we saw it could be lucrative, and we wanted to get that money so that we could do some of the other things in the community, but we didn't quite do the other things in the community. But we pivoted now, and we're really doing those things, and it really it is endearing us with our communities in a much different way that I think staff and communities are finding really refreshing. It seems like we're really getting back in alignment with what our mission is.
Well, that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
it's our mission.
Yeah.
And with that, I want to make sure you guys, I hope you took in the collateral damage. Think about decisions that you're making as leaders out here. And thank you guys for listening to Cosmetic.
Well, we are tackling topics and telling the truth.
Hey, subscribe and listen to us weekly.
And don't be shy. Give us a review and tell us what you do to mitigate collateral damage in your decision making.
And as always,
be dynamic.
Be phenomenal.
Be cosmetic.